All right, onward and upward. Looking at 5.3 now. So adding and subtracting signed decimal numbers. Now, we know calculators exist in this world. They're terrible things for the most part. But we can't just discount that they don't exist. However, what I do want to do is just kind of go through how things would be done if we didn't have calculators. So as much as I know calculators are going to be allowed and you can use calculators, it doesn't hurt to be able to know some tricks by hand and how to do some processes by hand. So the rules for adding and subtracting decimals are the same as for adding and subtracting integers. So remember, when the signs are the same and when the signs are different, all those rules that we talked about for the integers, so those rules still apply for decimals. But if we're combining by hand, be sure to line up decimal points in a column. Adding and subtracting always have to have those decimal points lined up. Now, when we're adding all positive numbers, those are the nice cases. So we can just put in zeros wherever we want, but this 7 is a 7.00, and then we got a 4.60. So we can add this by hand without a lot of problems. So now 8 in the zeros, so that's going to give you an 8. 3, 0, and 9, and 6 give you a 9. Bring down your decimal point, and 7 and 4 is 11. So the answer should be 11.98. Not much to it. Now, like I said, once you get the hang of doing things by hand, sometimes it's actually even faster than doing it by calculator, which we're going to see a little bit later. Now, something like this, a little bit messier, obviously, but we can still do it by hand as long as we get our decimal points lined up. And like it also said, you can put in extra zeros if you want to just keep things all nice and organized and you don't mess up adding columns up of numbers. So this 339.25, you're going to be a little bit careful. 339.250. And again, if you want to put some zeros in here just to kind of keep all the spots lined up nicely. All right, so 3 and zeros is 3. 6, 0, and 5 is 11. Carry a 1. So we got 8 and 5 is 13. 13 and 2 is 15. Carry a 1. So we got 9 there, and another 9 is 18. Carry a 1. 1 and 3 is 4. And we got another 3. And then our decimal point is right in between. Now, the one thing you can always do, and I encourage you to do if you're not sure, is use a calculator to double check. So if you say, oh, I don't know if I did that right, let me just double check it. So you can do it pretty fast on a calculator, obviously. 8.763 plus 0.5 plus 339.25 equals, and lo and behold, we got it right. Yay! All right, so what about subtraction? Oh. So subtracting by hand, well, again, in the nice cases where the first number is bigger than the second one, well, it's pretty standard in how we set it up. We want the big number first, and we'll add a couple zeros, and then the 2.852. Now, when we got to borrow, sometimes this can be a messy process, but let's see if we can do it. So we can't subtract 2 from 0, so we got to borrow from the 0, which makes it a 9. But because it was a 0, we had to borrow from the 7 to make it a 10. So we're going to drop this down to a 6 for now. All right, so 10 minus, remember this is a 10. 10 minus 2 is 8. 9 minus 5 is 4. Well, we can't subtract this, so we got to borrow from here, which makes this a 4, which makes this a 16. 16 minus 8 is 8. 4 minus 2 is 2, and bring down the 1. So 12.848 should be the answer. Now, subtraction is always one of those tougher things, but how can we check it? Without even using a calculator, we can check it by adding. Let's add these two lines here, and we should get back the original bigger number. So 2 and 8 is 10, carry a 1, 5 and 5 is 10, carry a 1. 9 and 8 is 17, carry a 1. 3 and 2 is 5. 1 and 0 is 1. So we did do it right. Yay. All right, let's do it again. Now, remember, if you're really, really not 100% sure, use your calculator to help. But at least try to do it by hand in small cases, not every single problem. All right, so 0.400, 0.291. So again, we got to borrow, which makes this a 9, but we had to borrow to make this a 3. So this is now a 10. So we got 9. 9 minus 9 is 0. 3 minus 2 is 1. And so we should be there. Not much to it. Now, it does get a little bit trickier when you got positive and negative decimals in there. So let's take a couple of those and see what we can do. So for this one, we got 24.008 plus a negative 0.995. So now we got to think back to our rules. We're adding two numbers with different signs. So the rule says we do what? Remember, the rule says we actually are going to be subtracting these. So we do want to subtract. All right, so let's do it down here. 24.008, 0.995. So 8 minus 5 is 3. Can't subtract from 0, so we got to borrow, which makes this a 9, which we got to borrow, which makes that a 3. So now we got a 10. So 10 minus 9 is 1. 9 minus 9 is 0. 3 minus 0 is 3. 2 minus nothing is 2. Now the final question you have to ask yourself is my answer going to be positive or negative? Well, our bigger number was the positive 24, so we should get a positive answer. So our answer is 23.013. All right, let's try a 3-numbered one. Now, we got subtraction and we got addition. So which one do we tackle first? You got to remember the order of operations. Those apply as well. Well, left to right. So we should do this operation first. Now, the thing to keep in mind is, do we want to rewrite it and have it as an addition problem? Because it's subtraction right now, we can change it to addition. So let's do that real quick. And remember our squeeze. We can squeeze a plus sign right in between that number and the minus sign. So 3.4 plus a negative 6.3. And we'll put the 7.3 at the end as well. So that's really what we got. So we're adding two numbers with different signs. So the rule says we got to subtract. So now which one goes on top? The bigger number in size always goes on top, no matter what. So even though it's negative, we want to put the 6.3 on top. So 6.3, 3.4. Or whoops, helps if I write the right number down. How about 6.6? That's always a problem with these, is that you can make a mistake just in transferring the problem down. So be very careful. So 6.6 minus 3.4, which we can do pretty quick. But is the answer positive or negative? Hopefully you're saying positive. What? Not positive. It's negative, right? Yeah, it's got to be negative because the negative one is bigger. So it should be a negative 3.2. Positive. Who said positive? All right. So now we got our negative 3.2 and adding it to 7.3. So same thing. We want to subtract those. So 7.3 is the bigger one. We'll put that on top. Subtract those, we get 4.1. So is it a positive 4.1 or a negative 4.1? Hopefully you're saying positive. Yeah, that one is positive. 7.3 is the bigger one. So, all right, not too bad. Like I said, sometimes those numbers can be a little funky, but Be careful and just make sure you use those rules for the operations. Two more, and then we'll call it for this section. All right. So now we definitely got some layers to this one. We got some parentheses, so we definitely want to tackle that first. Now, the one thing that you're probably looking at, saying, well, wait a minute, we got a double negative. Don't we want to take care of that first? No. And the reason why is because there's something to do inside of these parentheses. You have to do that first. So as tempting as it is to want to combine those or something, you can't do it. You got to simplify what's in the parentheses first. So we got a negative and we got a positive. So rule says we need to subtract. So let's do it down here. 67.2 minus 6.27. So we need an extra 0. And now we can subtract. So we got to borrow, which makes this a 1. We got to borrow, which makes this a 6, and this an 11. 10 minus 7 is 3. 11 minus 2 is 9. 6 minus 6 is 0. Bring down the 6. So we got 60.93. And is it positive or negative? The bigger one is negative, so it should be a negative answer. So now this is what we get. 16 minus, parentheses, a negative 60.93. Now that double negative we can use. There's nothing to do inside, so this double negative will become a plus. So you get 16 plus 60.93, and we can do that without any kind of scratch work, right? We should just get 76.93. 76.93. All right. One more, and this one's got some bigger numbers for sure. All right. Well, can we do any simplifying right off the bat? Yeah, we got a double negative right there. So we can take care of that. There's nothing to do inside. That's key. So, all right, so we got negative 3, whoops. Negative 3,425.723, 181.511, 26.809. All right, so that just makes it clear, no more parentheses. But now how do we want to combine stuff? What's nice about this one is that it's all addition. When it's all addition, we can combine any way we want. So I would say let's combine these two first because they're both positive. So we can just add those. We like to add better than subtract. So let's put those down. So we want to add those. So 1 and 9 is 10. Carry a 1. 2. 13. Carry a 1. 2 and 6 is 8. 8 and 2 is 10. So it looks like we get 208.320. All right. .320. Now, technically, we don't need to write that 0 at the end, but because we still got stuff to do, and this has got 3 decimal places, might as well leave it in. We don't need to get rid of it. So, all right, so now what's our last step? We're adding 2 numbers with different signs, so we better subtract. So let's go over here, 3425.723, and my screen keeps clicking off for some reason. And 208.320. All right, so let's subtract those. So we had 3, a 0, a 4. Okay, now we got to borrow. So that becomes a 1. 15 minus 8 is 7. 1 minus 0 is 1. And a 2. And a 3. Final question. Is it positive or negative? Yeah, negative. -3217.403. All right, not too bad, right? Okay, so now just one quick note here. 5, 1, 2, and 3 is one assignment, so that's already up in my math lab. 5, 4, and 5, 5 is another assignment, but all of it's like grouped together. So just keep that in mind. So make sure you get all 5 sections done eventually. So the next 2 videos will take care of 5, 4, and 5, 5. Should be quick. So see you soon.